Okay, so welcome everybody, viewers online and viewers in person. Tonight I want to ask a question that's been asked for over 3,000 years. It doesn't start with Tai Chi. It starts a long time ago. It was started by philosophers. It was started by teachers. It was started by leaders who wanted to find out how humans could live in harmony with nature and live in harmony with themselves. It wasn't just philosophical in ancient China. This wasn't supposed to be a sort of a question they asked on textbooks and everybody wrote in an answer. No, this was practical. They weren't looking for a philosophical answer. They weren't looking for a soft answer. They were looking for a practical given answer to a question that was huge at the time. China 3,000 years ago, much more advanced than the rest of the world. Their societies were much more advanced, and their questions about their societies were much more complex than the questions that were being asked in the West, maybe only sort of places like ancient Egypt and ancient America, not the USA, of course, the South Americans and the North Americans were asking similar questions because they had the same sized societies. So I have a slide set that I'm going to actually share with you. So I'm going to talk over it so you don't have to look at me all the time. We're going to start that from here. This it represents knowledge that I've been digging up since 1973. So this is a long time of study for me that has involved Tai Chi sometimes and not involved Tai Chi at others. Well, Tai Chi, as you probably currently understand it, I hope by the end of this webinar, your idea about what Tai Chi actually is going to be completely different. So I've called it Tai Chi Beyond the Divide, but there are many divides that we're actually going to look at here. But let's start. We're going to ask this fundamental question, okay, just to begin us. Is Tai Chi a martial art or a health system? Is it both? Or is it bigger than that? And do you really practice full Tai Chi? You probably think you do. Let's just find out whether you do. Looking at it, the scholars and the physicians, the philosophers, martial practitioners, they all began this project together, all of them. Not just some of them, it was right across the board. Everybody was involved. They wanted to create nothing less than a self-balancing human being, an organism that could balance their inner world, could also balance their physical health, balance their emotions, balance their relationship with nature, and balance their role within the cosmos. So we're already looking way outside Tai Chi family style. This is 3,000 years ago. This is not just since the 1600s. The idea was what you see below you in the slide: healthy, happiness, and wisdom. Three macrocosms there, each of which has its own microcosm: mind and body, human, all things on earth, it says, heaven, and humans. This is what they were looking at. They weren't looking at anything sort of small, but they gave it a name. What they found was that humans, on their own, in the whole of what they could see, what they could understand, humans were the only entity that contained all the possibilities. Many of them contained some of this, some of that, some of the other. Humans have all of it. In Chinese philosophy, like it says there, they had the ability to become any of the 10,000 things. Not just one of them, any of them, all of them. How do we guide humans toward balance rather than chaos? Because we are immensely chaotic. You only need to look at the world today to see the chaos humans can wreak. You only need to look at what's happening within our so-called sophisticated societies to see that we will quite easily completely wreck everything in front of us. And this is what they were frightened of 3,000 years ago. This is what they were worried about. This is why it was so important for them to actually have some sort of way to stop humans from doing this, because this is what we can actually do. And they actually formed this. Qianren He probably said that completely wrong, but I've put it down in writing as well so that people can understand it rather than listen to my really bad Chinese pronunciation. Heaven and humanity in unity. That's what they were looking for. They weren't looking for a health system. They weren't looking for a martial system. What they were looking for was much, much bigger than that. Heaven and humanity in unity. Look back on Chinese culture and you'll find this again and again and again. The question was much bigger. Health system or martial system wasn't even thought of at this point. It was much, much bigger. It was about humans and humanity and the cosmos. It was that humans contained all the possibilities. And so they looked into this. They watched the seasons, they watched the weather, they watched the movement of animals, the cycles of growth and decay, the relationship between rest and activity. All of this was examined, all of it. So it began with the observation of nature. And if you look at China and if you look at their culture 3,000 years ago, this is what they were doing. Way before anybody else, they were looking at this. And this was Tai Chi. This was 3,000 years ago. It's the first time Tai Chi was mentioned. It's in the I Ching. Just look it up. It's there. Supreme Ultimate Tai Chi. That's what they were looking at. Nothing less than that. They were not looking to produce any sort of system. They were trying to answer a fundamental question. How do humans live with everything else without going straight to the chaotic side? So how do they live in balance rather than chaos? They realized this, that human beings can train themselves to live within these natural rhythms. We had the possibility, again, this was unique to humans. We could do this. And if they did that successfully, they could build a balanced life. So they looked at all of these things. This was their exploration. They looked at stillness, they looked at movement, they looked at soft, they looked at hard, internal, external, rest, activity. And so they're looking at opposites. And what they're looking at as well is we often, when we think about, we're looking at opposites, we're looking at, you get to the opposite end. So you get to hot or you get to cool. But no, they didn't. That wasn't what they were looking at. They were looking at the transition between the two. So if you're going from hot to cold, how do you transition from hot to cold? Think of your Tai Chi now and think of the way that you do your movements. You think of the way that you put the energy through into your Tai Chi, and you're doing much the same thing. You're taking the transition, you're controlling the transition, you're in charge of the transition. It's not happening to you. You are not unconscious from this. You're conscious of it. You are part of it. You are controlling it. You are directing it. This is why Tai Chi has become like it is. But we'll come back more to that. The idea of balanced life, the movement, the breathing, internal cultivation, it was that transition they were looking at. How did that work within humans? This actually came to this. So 2,000 years ago, we're looking at now, 3,000 years ago. As long ago as that, this started to appear, Daoyin. You often hear of Daoyin when you're talking about Tai Chi, but especially when you're talking about Qigong. Okay, people go Daoyin this, Daoyin that, doing Daoyin the other. Daoyin only means guiding energy. That's all it means. Again, it's that transition piece that you're looking at. How do you transition from one to the other? Consciously, the human can actually do that. We can actually direct it. We can stop it at any point and use it at that point. We can manipulate it. We can make it something else. And this is what they were finding all the time. And again, though, this was not martial art. There was nothing martial in this at all. It didn't go anywhere near aggression. It didn't go anywhere near violence. It only went to health, mental health and physical health. You can see the two diagrams. These two diagrams are way over 2,000 years old. They come from a book that they still have. They have it up in Beijing. And these are Dao Yin exercises, some of the original ones. I could go into what they are, but I won't, because we can do that another time. But now they're starting to look at stretching, flowing movements, breathing exercises, dance-like movements. This is 3,000 years ago, not 400 years ago. They were starting to use them to treat illness. How do you treat illness with this? How do you remain vital with this? How do you form this system? What's it called? The Qi system was forming. They were understanding where the Qis come from, what they do, how you increase them, how you decrease them, how you manipulate them, what you can do, what you can't do. So nothing here was martial, nothing at all. It was all health related. And it was not just the health of the human they were looking at. It was the health of the macrocosm they were looking at, the health of the environment, the health of our living conditions, what we did within the places that we lived, how that affected further on, how doing that to the earth affected the cosmos. So it's a much, much bigger question that they're asking here. They see us as the actuators. We have the ability to destroy or create. They've found that out. So how do we point this organism who has the ultimate ability to destroy everything in front of it? How do you make it not do that? How do you make it use destruction in a positive manner? Because we do need destruction sometimes. How do we stop them from causing an imbalance? How do we do that? So that's what they're looking at. And this is looking at the macrocosm outside, but the microcosm inside the human body. So Qigong was starting now. We were looking very, very much at the health of the internal aspects of human beings. And this is hugely important, but it's very overlooked, and very overlooked in Tai Chi classes. The very few Tai Chi classes I know that actually go into any of this. As you can see from this, that you can see here, these were found in a Han Dynasty tomb, these ones. This is 168 BCE, Han Dynasty, where those actually come from. There were 44 illustrated exercises that they actually saw in there, standing ones, seated ones. These are both seated. This is one of the first sort of visual looks at ancient Qigong practices. But again, the purpose was clear. It was health, longevity, internal balance they were looking at. Nothing, again, nothing to do with martial arts. In 1973, they found this. This again, 168 BCE, Han Dynasty. The Silk Scroll is called Daoyin Tu. I've seen this scroll where I studied in China, in Hunan, in a place called Changsha. This scroll is in the museum in Changsha. So I've seen it. It's huge. There's loads of it. This is just a section of it. All 44 exercises are there. You can see them. But all of it shows health-related exercises. But it also shows healing. So you're looking now into, okay, humans can do this, humans can do that. So how do we use it? So now we're looking here at what, just over 2,000 years ago? They're starting to look now at to how do we use it? How do we make something from it? Now they're looking at systems. Now they're looking at something. Instead of looking at the massive question that we started with, now they're looking at a system. How do we use it? What do we do with it? This is what we do with it. So now we've moved on again, a few hundred years. Okay, Hua Tuo appeared. This is a person you can actually find again. He's very famous. He has an actual historical space There isn't 5 of them in about 1,000-year span, like there is with some of the other mythical figures that they've got in China. This is one guy. He's a physician. Now, this isn't a physician like you have in the West. This is a physician from China. So he's using Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine uses Qigong. Everything that's being done at the moment, all that looking through and all that movement and all that experimentation, that's part of medicine. That's not to fight with. That's medicine, health, again. And he came up with this. Don't look at the picture for the moment. Just look at the text. And he came up with a system that was 5 animal frolics. The 5 animal frolics were a set of exercises. What they did is they took the elements and the activities of these particular animals and actually put them through intent, yi, into the Qigong. So now the Qigong is actually not martial, but now it's got a movement within it that is now linking to the environment that they've got. So it's not so much looking at the human anymore, it's looking at attributes from outside that the human can copy, that the human can absorb rather, and the human can actually use for their own benefit. He picked up the tiger, he picked up the deer, the bear, the monkey, the crane. Very, very health related. There wasn't any fighting to do with this, but it was this work that became Shaolin Kung Fu and the 5 animals. You can see the 5 animals have changed. Now you have the tiger still, you have the leopard instead, you have the snake, you have the dragon, and you have the crane. So they've changed because the attributes have changed, because Shaolin is not for health. Shaolin is martial. They needed to look at animals using the principles that come from this. They needed to transfer those principles into something that could be used martially. And to do that, they picked different animals. Hua Tao, his work was health. Later, it became martial. So this was the start of the Qigong that would eventually lead to the martial elements of Tai Chi. You might say, okay, so what did what? The tiger strengthened tendons. The deer nourished the kidneys. The crane improved breathing and lung energy. And that's what they were looking at. Do you have this in your Tai Chi? You should. That should be part of what you're learning. Because this is what we're looking at here. We're looking at the formation of Tai Chi. This is what Tai Chi was at the time. And this is exactly what it should be now. Or these elements should still be there. Do you have them? If you don't, why not? Where are you going to find them? Health-focused human microcosm is what we're looking at now. Now we move on a bit. We're moving to the martial. But look at the date. 500 years in, 2,500 years after the start of this investigation. 2.5 millennia. Now we're looking at martial. But it's not yet. Remember I told you right back at the beginning, they were looking for the transition movements. They wanted to see how you moved from hot to cold. What was all the in-between stages? So now we're looking at, okay, we can do the internal for man, we can do the health, we can do the medicine. Okay, where do we go from next? But don't forget, the whole reason of this was man's chaotic nature. It was their ability to destroy, utterly destroy, that they found that they needed to have balance. Where do they go next? Of course, they're going to look at how do you have that destructive nature in a controlled environment, in a controlled way that actually has a positive outcome. And here now, Liang Dynasty and Hu Jingzi, the system called Hu Qianfa, the method of later heaven. You can see at the bottom there, you have 2 Bagua trigrams, and early heaven and later heaven. What we were talking about before is early heaven. What we're moving into now is later heaven. Don't forget, we're talking Tai Chi. Tai Chi has 2 sides, not one. The 8 directional movements started to come in, and they became very important because they realized and Depends, I suppose, on whether you believe in planetary influence on humans or not. But they realized that actual facing certain parts of the magnetic poles and facing and being part of the cosmology and the cosmic energy were affecting humans. So they started to look at that, and that's where the 8 directions came from. But now something different is happening. The health practices that you had before, they're still there. They're still going on, and they're still happening. And they're not complete because they haven't looked at the other side of human nature, the martial side of human nature. So now you start to see that progression from the internal to the external. So from health practices to martial practices, 2,500 years of exploration and experimentation have brought us to this point. We don't junk that. That's not part of Tai Chi. That is the beginning of Tai Chi. We're not that much further away from that point now. We're only a few hundred years away from that. And that's something you need to bear in mind as we go a bit further forward. So how did they do this? This is how they do it. Taoism now is well established. Taoism is part and parcel of what all these people are doing. The Taoist principles, the Taoist look at things, the Taoist way of looking at life and the universe and everything else in between is rife. Those same people that I talked about in slide 1 have now become the Taoists. The influence from Buddhism has been brought into Taoism. I know that myself. I was a Buddhist, not an actual monk, but a Buddhist scholar in southern China. We did that in the 70s, and we were learning this from there. And they took me from there to Tibet. And in Tibet, with the Bon, I saw how the Bon system knitted into the Buddhist system, and then how the Bon and the Buddhist system knitted into the Taoist system, because this is a transition, remember. And that's the transition that went through. So we still have the Bon, nothing like they used to be. We still have Theravedic Buddhism, which is the Buddhism that I did. I'm not a Buddhist, by the way, but the teaching was the teaching that brought us to this. It was the teaching from those two sources that formed the beginning of Taoism. And then it was Taoism that took all this further forward. And as you can see at the top of that slide, I'm saying the Taoist mountain practitioners. This is mountains like Wudang. But Wudang wasn't the only holy mountain in China. There were several of them. In fact, I think there are about 90 of them altogether. It has to have so many peaks for it to be a holy mountain. Branka and I have visited one on several occasions where Zen Buddhism actually began. It didn't begin in Japan, it started in China. Now we've come to 618, 907. Okay, so still not 1,000 years into this era that we're in now. Tang Dynasty. The recluses are now living in the mountains. They're living in a very violent China, a very aggressive China, and they're learning how to look after themselves. And they're now developing martial systems. So this is still, 1,000 years before Chen style or any of the family styles? They're already using Tai Chi movement, Tai Chi principles in a martial manner, way, way before there was any family styles. So this was part and parcel of it. It wasn't all of it. It was just part of it. So they could use what they'd been learning up to this point in order to defend themselves. So now we're looking at the monks. So they found out, how do you combine stillness and movement? How do you combine softness and power, relaxation and strength? This is just a way of using what they'd already learned. This wasn't new. This was just, how do we use this? How do we take this further? Chen Wanting, who founded Chen Taichi, they say that he may have encountered these traditions. He encountered these traditions because they were everywhere. This is what was going on at the time. So when he went off into the mountains, he probably went to the Taoists and learnt from them how to combine long fist boxing, which was the Chen martial way of being, with what they were doing, the Taoist movement's ways and the principles that were there, they continued to create that internal harmony. Is that in your Tai Chi? Do you feel that? Are you taught that? You should be. You are here, I might add. There again, I am biased. And I don't mind admitting that. Let's move on a little bit further. Okay, we're going into the Ming Dynasty now. Ming Dynasty, they merged stronger. That transition that I was talking about before is getting stronger and stronger. This is General Shi Jingxuan's boxing in 32 forms. This was the boxing that formed long fist boxing that Chen Wanting took into the mountains. This is where he took it from. This is the 13 postures. So, you know, Peng Lu Jian, forward, backwards, left, right, center, you know, all those energies that you hear about now in Tai Chi. But we're still way, way before the forming of Tai Chi as a martial system. It's an accompaniment to Tai Chi, the health system. It's a complement to Tai Chi, the living system. It's a company to Tai Chi, the balance, how to live a balanced life, how to look after yourself, physically, mentally, externally, internally. It's looking at all of that and pulling it together. They weren't just physical techniques that they learned here in the boxing forms. They were internal techniques. This is Tai Chi, as we know it today, way before the formation of Chen, Yang, Sun, any of them. This is where they took it from. They didn't come up with it themselves. They took it from here and formed it into a style and isolated it. But we're coming to that. 2,000 years now we look at of internal exploration now is moving towards what we now call modern Tai Chi. We're now in the late 1600s, 3,500 years after the start of this journey. Not 400 years into it, 3,500 years of it. You don't ditch that. That doesn't become irrelevant. That doesn't become not part of Tai Chi. It's a very small part of Tai Chi, modern Tai Chi as we look at it now. It shouldn't be. By far, it shouldn't be. Chen Wanting, okay, he synthesized many of the traditions, the ancient Taoist and Taoyin health practices, the breathing systems, the martial training, the 13 postures, and he combined that with his battlefield experience. Don't forget, Chen Wanting was no ordinary guy. This guy was the leader of a martial family. When he went off and actually formed what became Chen-style Tai Chi Chuan, he wasn't coming from nowhere. Look at the picture that you have in front of you there. And you see the guy standing at the back with the big sword? That's representation of one half. The guy standing in the front or sitting in the front, that's the other half. This is the duality of Tai Chi. So yeah, you have the martial. That is a general stood at the back. The martial man. The man in the front, that's a priest, a monk, a healer, a doctor. They're not separated. And this is a representation of Chen Wanting. And now we can see the circle is becoming complete. It's gone from health, where it started, and headed into martial. As we look further now, as we go further into our practice, we come to this, the integrated system. What are we supposed to be doing with Tai Chi now? This is what we're supposed to be doing with Tai Chi. This is our responsibility. As Tai Chi practitioners, we've picked up that 3,000-year-old question. We've replaced the Taoist monks. We've replaced the scholars. We've replaced the thinkers. We've replaced the doctors. We're it. This is where Tai Chi goes to. Tai Chi is with us now. That's up to us. What do we do with that? Do we carry that on? Is it simply a martial art? No, it's not simply a martial art. And it's not simply a health exercise either. It's both of them. Absolutely both of them. And I ask you again, are you practicing Tai Chi or are you practicing Tai Chi Kung Fu? Because the two things are different. They're not the same. Tai Chi is much more than Tai Chi Kung Fu, much more. Tai Chi Kung Fu is just one expression of Tai Chi, one expression of Supreme Ultimate. That's all. We're it now. And that's something you need to think about. Are you doing that? Or are you just doing forms? If you're just doing forms, if you're just doing frames and learning one after the other, after the other, after the other, you are missing a huge 2,000 years of study thrown out of the window. Because unless you're bringing the energy into it, unless you're learning how to manipulate that energy, how to bring it, how to transition it, how to use it, how to heal with it, how to use it for health, how to use it martially also, all of that. If you're not doing that, you're not doing Tai Chi. You're doing Tai Chi Kung Fu. Now, I know that when I was with my masters in China, that they described what we were doing all the time as Tai Chi Kung Fu, not as Tai Chi, Tai Chi Kung Fu, because they know. Fang, my own teacher, the man I talked about before who won national championships with Tai Chi or Tai Chi Kung Fu, I introduced him to Taoism. I introduced him to the other half of Tai Chi. He had no knowledge of it at all, nothing. His Tai Chi Kung Fu was the best in China, but he had no learning at all about energy. He had no learning about the internal arts. He had no learning about cosmology. He had no learning about Taoism. And I'm not going to say the names, but I met the heads of some of the biggest Tai Chi families on the planet. They didn't have it either. And yet now they are the ones that are proposing that Tai Chi is a martial art. And you martially follow Tai Chi, do more forms, do more frames, learn the weapons, learn the this, learn the that. When was the last time you saw any of these big families actually say to you, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to examine the cosmological effect of planetary pull and planetary alignment on your energy and how you cope with that as the seasons change? When was the last time you heard that from any of those families? You don't. I certainly never have. I've studied it myself, but it's self-study. I teach it. The more we go into it, the more we do. And today's challenge, I would say to you, is this. If we're going to take on the mantle that started 3,000 years ago, we have to take this on too. We can't be distracted and pushed into the martial element of Tai Chi. We can't allow it to diminish to some form of learning how to not be violent whilst using aggression or not be aggressive while using violence. We can't do that. We can't junk nearly 3,000 years of history, 3,000 years of study, 3,000 years of experimentation and knowledge and understanding because we want to move better. Fine, if that's what you want from your Tai Chi, go for it. No problem. That's not an issue. Not an issue at all. But however, that's not what I want from my Tai Chi. That's not what we do at Tai Chi Rebel. Tai Chi Rebel, you'll get all of this. And the longer you stay with it, the more of it you get. We start always with the physical discipline. We have to. Humans have to learn, just like all the time, they have to learn how to control their physical body. They have to learn how to control their emotional outburst. to be able to even start to begin to use the energies that we can manipulate. And this is not religious. This is just ordinary, straightforward. Let's be what we're potentially capable of being. Let's do this. Let's not have 3,000 years of history thrown away and we all go around pretending to sort of swipe each other with swords. That's great fun, but it is fun. Tai Chi is a health system. Tai Chi is an internal system. Tai Chi is a martial art. Tai Chi is all of that. You have to decide yourself, where are you going to get it? Where's it going to come from? How are you going to do that if that's what you want? Do you want all of Tai Chi, or do you just want to learn how to martially beat up other people better without affecting yourself? If you want all of Tai Chi, you've got to find a place where you can get that. We do this at Tai Chi Rebel, and I'm not joking. I've been studying this since the 1970s. It's taken me this long to get it together so I can understand what I'm teaching. But I can teach this. I do teach this. Thousands of people have come through my psychology clinics when I was working as a psychologist, and through my students as different forms of students. Some have been Kung Fu, some have been martial arts, some have been Tai Chi, some have been English students, psychology students, different students of learning all the way through. But students, as I am a student. But if you want Tai Chi, it really is the supreme ultimate. It says, it is what it says on the tin. It's everything. And if you want that, take that. But find somewhere you can find it. You're not going to find it by doing more and more and more forms and frames and weapons. That's not going to give it to you. It has to go further. So think about it. That's the link, by the way, for our membership. I would advise you, well, actually, you are members, so thank you. Stick with it. If you're watching this as a recording, try it. See what full Tai Chi looks like. See what full Tai Chi is. It doesn't interfere with you. It enhances you. We don't expect anything from you. You take from this as you want. Everything is there. It's like a buffet. You decide. It's about you. It's not about me. It's not about the other people in Tai Chi Rebel, but it is about learning how to be in a world like this and not be part of it. It is about learning how to be what you are as a human being. You have the potential for absolute destruction. We can see it all around us at the moment. But we also have the potential of absolute creation too. We could do with bringing some of that out. Tai Chi was designed from its outset as a way for humans to do that, to be able to do that, not to destroy, but to create, to live a balanced way. That's what I've got to say about this. Hopefully you enjoyed it. It's a presentation. If you have questions, those of you that are watching, you know how to get in touch with me and you know I'll answer you. If you have questions, ask me. I love that. So please do. Thank you for coming. And hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Okay. Thank you.